Hello and welcome. Today we are going to be discussing magic in the ancient Greek world. Magic and religion. For the vast majority of religions that have existed, magic and the gods are one, right? And that is certainly true with the ancient Greeks. The wisdom of the Middle East, is going to migrate and infiltrate the Greek world pretty early on. In fact, I'm going to say before Greece even really, what we think of as Greece even really began, magic from the Middle East has been coming into Greek, right? And certainly penetrating Greek thought. Greece and this time period of the ancient world is going to represent a golden age of magic, right? And the reason it's called a golden age of magic is because everyone in the society is going to be participating in it in some way or another. The most common type of magic you could see in ancient Greece was simple magic. That is, magic that is being used by the untrained, which is the vast majority of people, right? The poison or the curse were the most common forms of malevolent magic that could be used even by someone who wasn't really a magician, right? And because of this, we see the amulet or talismans of protection being used by the vast majority of people in Greece, because there are these curses going out. Bad people are putting curses on other people, and so a lot of people did have these amulets they would wear for protection from these curses. A curse tablet would usually be placed in a victim's home somewhere, or outside the home, or sometimes even in that person's grave if they wanted to curse them into the afterlife. Even while they're in Hades, they're cursed, right? So generally speaking, curses are usually pretty malevolent, right, in nature. When we talk about the most prevalent true adept of magic, is going to be the pharmaci, right? That word is the root for what we call a pharmacist today, right? A distributor of medicines. A pharmaci is going to be a master of herbs, of poisons, and of drugs, right? So they could be a healer or a witch, depending on how they chose to use their knowledge, right? They would brew healing potions, poisons, cures, aphrodisiacs, love potions, and even drugs that induced abortions. Poisons that typically comprised nightshade or hemlock, sometimes mercury or cyanide or arsenic, or even snake venom. For healing tonics, this usually could consist of burdock, marshmallow, Balkan peony, elecampane, purple orchid, licorice, and mandrake. And a good pharmaci was going to be good enough to get employed by the state, right, or the king, or someone that was wealthy, or alternatively, they'd be popular enough to be able to sell their services at large to the community. If, according to Greek belief, all magic comes from the gods, it is no surprise that the gods are going to be the most powerful wielders of magic, right? They've got these superhuman powers to summon lightning or change the weather or bring about a tornado or a tremendous calamity, to raise the dead effortlessly or kill them effortlessly. So a wizard or a witch doesn't have the power themselves to do these things, They are trying to implore the gods, or get the gods, use the power of the gods to cast magic, right? This, for a malevolent user of magic, this is going to be the goddess of witchcraft, the six-armed demon Hecate, right? And it's going to be the source of many a witch's power. When I say witch, I mean a malevolent user of magic for evil and insidious things. Others, other than Hecate, could be called on to for vengeance or curses. Lamia, a child-devouring demon, similarly to the Impusa, right? They could use the Nemesis, right? Nemesis could come and attack whoever they didn't like, or the Furies, right? Of vengeance. Necromancy, right? Communing with the dead or a demon occurred through necria. Now, the people of the time believed that the dead would have knowledge of what's going on in the afterlife, how they died, for example, who killed them, who was responsible, as well as knowledge of the future, of the past, of the present. They kind of had this omnipotence about them. And so there were numerous ways to summon the dead, to either manifest a ghost or a spirit, or to actually resurrect the corpse and have the corpse speak to them, literally. There were several ways to do it. One was to light a fire at night, and then sacrifice animals to the fire. It would have to be a black animal that they sacrificed. And then speak this particular incantation to resurrect the corpse in physical form. They would need to, it could include eating pieces of the corpse, perhaps their nose or some fingers, or wear the clothes of the dead person, or commit animal sacrifice to that dead person, or more insidiously commit sex acts with the corpse in order to get it to reanimate. Curses, however, are going to be the most popular form of evil magic that we see very commonly. Many of these curses are going to be in a demonic language known as voces mysticae, right? Or voices, the mystery voices, right? Now, curses were often done by evil practitioners of magic, who asked for assistance from evil gods or demons. It may be that these individuals created their own secret language that only demons could understand, or it's also likely gibberish that they thought humans can't understand, but the demon will know what we're talking about. Either way, these curses often invoked Hecate, or one of her legion. Over 1,600 curse tablets have been found in ancient Greece, and they differ widely in terms of their purpose. Obviously, many of these curses implore a victim to be killed or sacrificed or mutilated. It may also be for an individual to lose a court case, or for a witness to not be able to testify. They can't speak, they've been muted, they can't testify. Or forcing a victim to fall in love with you. We'll get more into that later, but those types of tablets often were bound in the victim's hair for magical reasons. One such curse read, "I call upon the demons to bind the marriage of Thetima and Diosophon, so that Diosophon never wed any woman but me. May I grow old with Diosophon, and no one else. Have pity upon me, dear demons, for I am alone and abandoned. Do this for me, so the wretched Thetima perishes miserably, and let me be happy and blessed." Now, with all these curses going around, amulets were very popular because you didn't want this to happen to you. All right. But we also notice that amulets are also being used for medicinal purposes. A fellow named Alexander of Tralles writes, many patients, especially the rich ones, absolutely refuse to take medicines or have enemas used on their stomachs, and instead compel us to put a stop to their pain by resorting to magical amulets. Galen, the well-known pharmaci, notes an instruction for the creation of a magical amulet. Take several threads, preferably dyed with sea purple. Put them around the throat of a viper or a serpent and choke it. Then tie all the threads around your neck. This amulet will cure tonsillitis. All right. And he also mentions that an amulet of green jasper is good for the stomach and the esophagus. Odd, right? But it gives you an idea of what's occurring. Cyranides, right? Cyranides writes, if you catch two lizards copulating, cut off the male's penis, and dry it and give the powder to a woman to drink, she will be strongly attracted to you. Wearing the lizard's tail as an amulet ensures erection. Pliny writes that sleep can be prevented by the dried head of a bat being worn as an amulet around the neck. Soranus notes on this subject, some doctors say that amulets are effective. I have myself no time for them. Even so, we should not forbid our patients from wearing them. They may not provide any direct relief, but they do perhaps make sufferers more cheerful through the hope that they inspire. He's suggesting it's a placebo. We can see numerous examples of evil magic users in Greek mythology. In the Odyssey, the witch Circe uses her wand to turn men into pigs for seemingly nothing but pleasure. Also, a god appears to Odysseus and gives him a plant named Moly. The plant named Moly, when he ate it, protected him from the magic of the witch's wand. When we look at the tale of Jason and the Golden Fleece, or Jason and the Argonauts, it tells of the witch Medea using a sleeping potion to put the Hydra to sleep. And later, Jason's wife, she kills Jason's wife by poisoning her robe. And in a complete derangement, she ends up killing her own children and taking to the skies in a magical chariot, or later, the witch's broom, fleeing the scene. Her father, the sorcerer, Aeetes, the king of Chalkis, uses necromancy to sow seeds into the ground to sprout undead warriors to pursue the Argonauts. Pasiphae, the jealous wife of King Minos, uses magic to turn his seed or semen into snakes to prevent him from committing adultery. Some of these are more morally reprehensible than others, but they nonetheless give you an idea of some witches in mythology. Those who did things like this, who used poisons to kill people, who placed really mean curses on people, who had a habit of doing that, who were practicing necromancy and eating of the flesh, or copulating with corpses, were given the death penalty, right? While this is a tolerant society we're talking about when it comes to magic, it is very intolerant of evil magic. The Greeks were. They would be found, they would be killed, right? They have a police force. It's different than the police, but essentially they perform the same function, and they would find you. There's an example of a witch, Theoris of Lemnos, who was sentenced to death in the 4th century BC for brewing and distributing harmful potions and spells. In Athens, ironically, a witch named Demosthenes was put to death for brewing love potions for young men and worshiping foreign gods. And that's an unusual case there, because she's not doing anything necessarily evil. But yes, the police would hunt these people, or also known as the astamnio. The astonomia would hunt them. Both Stoic and Epicurean philosophers, including Plato, argued heavily for the extinction of all forms of magic, and obviously that's eventually going to occur. One of the more malevolent cults, religious cults in Greece, is going to be in Arcadia. You've seen our History of Werewolves video, you'll know about this. This is where that myth's going to come from. It's a tribe named the Nuri, who originally from Scythia migrate to the area, and they're going to be cannibals by nature, and they're going to worship a known as Zeus Lycanus. They have perverted the Olympian religion, and what they are doing is making a blood sacrifice to this wolf Zeus, and are doing blood magic. They are eating people so that they may transmute into a wolf, right? And they are going to find bones. They are going to find evidence of cannibalism. Archaeologists are. So this is based on something, but that gives you an idea of a malevolent cult in Greece. And no doubt there were more malevolent cults than just the Nuri. Prognostication. The seer, the prognosticator, held the highest positioned wielder of magic in the Greek world. This individual is tasked with reading omens to predict the future of kings, queens, senate members, etc. And the ways they could do this, one was heptamancy. The seer would sacrifice an animal and then study its entrails to discern the future, right? It would study the liver, the spots on the liver, that this somehow indicated something. The most powerful of these seers was the oracle, especially the oracle of Delphi, right? Or Delphi, who did not need entrails to communicate with the gods. The oracle's title was the Pythia, right? And kings, peasants, heroes, everyone sought the advice of the Pythia. According to Plutarch, among other ancient sources, Pythia would breathe in noxious gases that rose from a chasm within the rock. She would then tell the patron with lyrical expertise a cryptic answer to their question. We now know that the noxious gases the Pythia inhaled was effectively a drug called ethylene, similar to modern anesthesia, which placed her in a rather euphoric, right, a really euphoric otherworldly state, right? She is high as a kite. And this otherworldly state, this inhuman state she would be in, unnatural state, would make her seem divine. Besides the drug-induced hysteria, the oracles would also routinely practice pyromancy. Pyromancy, this is an ancient form of divination in which the oracle would interpret the meaning of the dancing shapes within the flames, or throw something into it and see how the flames danced or interacted with the burning object, and that would somehow mean something to them, right? These objects that they throw in were typically salt, right? Bones, plants, but there's many other things. Chiromancy, right? Which is essentially palm reading. They did that back then. That this is going to be a more novice form of seeing. Necromancy, mentioned communion with the dead. Aromancy would involve staring at the shapes in the clouds and trying to discern meaning from the shapes of the clouds in the sky. Hydromancy likewise required the studying of water and determining meaning from the ripples, right? And the effervescence, right? So you're just kind of studying the ripples and the bubbles in this water, and you could determine meaning from that, or you would just stare into a bowl of water. This is called lichanomancy. You'd stare into a bowl of water for about 3 hours, just staring at it. And same with pyromancy or aromancy. You would just stare and stare and stare until your eyes effectively had a strange effect and you begin to see things. I say about after the 3 hour period, you begin to see things that that aren't there, right? And that's the vision you've been given from the gods. Omens are very important to a seer. We can see that all throughout ancient Greek and Roman literature. Signs from the gods were varied, from the remarkable to the completely coincidental, right? And the wisdom of a sage or a seer was usually employed by military commanders and kings. A dream, a lightning strike, an eclipse are all prominent omens of the future. When those exciting events of nature failed to occur, they often relied on stranger things, such as the whimsy of the birds would fascinate these guys. The appearance of a white dove, a crane, an owl, or an eagle typically meant good, while the flight of crows would mean something bad, or the birds flying away meant a calamity was coming. Despite the seer's ability to rely on ridiculous, their determination of the future had a dramatic weight. These nations could choose to declare war. It would decide military strategy. It would decide peace or war, to surrender or to continue fighting. Many different things. Both the oracle and lesser seers had enormous sway upon political events, and obviously personal ones. There were those who were nefarious, who sought to not see the future but control it. A lecherous form of magic known as imitation was occurring, and this is essentially they're going to be trying to control, literally take control of another person. To conjure this effect, a wizard would make a doll or an effigy of that person, and a wizard could then damage the effigy, bringing harm to the victim, or they could stroke it and caress it and be super sweet to it, say all nice things, and then the victim could be forced via magical means to fall in love with them, right? The wooing of the doll is the most popular form of this, rather than hurting it. So we talked a lot about the bad magic or witches of ancient Greece, but there is a nobler side to ancient magic, and especially that occurring in Greece. Albarus is an example of one. He's said to have been able to see into the future, a miracle worker, heal people. Apollonius was said to be able to raise the dead, heal the sick, predict the future. Of those, though, who were benevolent, Hippocrates, right, is probably one of the best examples. He is a pharmaci, known as the father of medicine. His great revelation was that not all sickness and disease and ills are coming as a punishment from the gods, right? Previously, that is the thought. If you're sick, the gods have done this to you. His diversion from that standard belief created modern medicine and the Hippocratic Oath, which is do no harm. This doctor will do no harm. Previously, the medicine man, the herbalist, the pharmaci could just as easily sell you a healing potion as he could poison, right? So that is the difference between this new profession called the doctor. We are to only heal, we are to do no harm. And so we see that from magic comes doctors, right? And modern medicine. They were supposed to be benevolent and not a neutral summer of magic. They are going to fall under the name the Theurgia, right? As in a higher form of magic, while Goetia is a lesser form of magic, often referred to as evil magic. But the Theurgia are going to have healing temples all across Greece, right? They're these doctors that are also wizards. Over 700 of them that have been found. And victims would come to be healed there. And they're going to worship a guy named, Ascleps. Where did that go? I got to look at my notes every now and then to remember his name. Asclepius, right? Asclepius is a guy who is going to be befriended by Chiron the centaur, and this centaur is going to give him the corpse of a gorgon. With the corpse of this gorgon, he can either heal or poison people. So what he's going to do is if he could take blood from the left side of the gorgon's body, and if he gave that to people, it would kill them, right? And so he poisoned and killed people. If he could take blood from the veins of the right side of the gorgon's body and give it to people, it would heal them, and he did this quite a bit. He's going to be worshipped as God. They believe him to just be a normal man who happened to be some sort of a founder of healing, of medicine. But the Theurgia are going to worship him as a sort of god, right? These doctors are going to worship him as a type of god. And so victims could go to any one of these over 700 healing sites across Greece, and they would stay there. And these doctors would then pray to the gods and try to interact with the god, implore the god, to use magic to implore the god to come down and heal this person. Now, in the stories, and they'd also perform surgery as well, but in the stories of how this worked from people who got better, they would fall asleep that night, and in a dream, a god would come to them and heal them in their dream, and then they wake up the next morning healed. All right, so that is a use. Medicine and magic are completely intertwined in ancient Greece. That's what we're getting at. There's some odd things occurring. I'll give you an idea to prove my point. We'll read some of these medicine magic treatments. Marcellus instructs to cut the foot off of a live rabbit, remove the fur from its belly, then let the rabbit go free. Make a strong thread out of the fur and use it to tie the foot to the sick person's body. This produces a marvelous cure. Here we have the origin of the lucky rabbit's foot. A Greek magical papyri describes a contraceptive by way of magic. Take some vetch seeds, one for every year you wish to remain infertile. Soak them in a woman's menstrual blood. She should then insert them into her genitalia and soak them. Then take a live frog and throw those same vetch seeds into its mouth so that it swallows them, and then release the frog alive where you caught it. Yeah. There are also magic healing incantations that are spoken, which appear to be nonsensical. One magic incantation to stop bleeding is Sisi Kuma Kukuma Ukuma Kuma Uma Ma. That is the magic spell right there that would supposedly stop bleeding. Another incantation, this is specifically to stop uterine bleeding, translates as such. A stupid man was going along a mountain. The stupid man was stupefied. I beg you, womb, do not take this up angrily. Another papyrus notes, there's plenty of these magic papyrus, demons, that is to say the spirits of evil people, enter into the bodies of the living and kill them if they receive no help. A simple application of mandrake quickly drives the demon out of the person's body. So they are dealing with spiritual problems as well. Besides healers, this class of omnipotent magic, the Theurgia, provide us with Greece's greatest wizards. Evolving into the classical period, wise men such as Pythagoras, Proclus, and Archimedes were fundamental followers of the school of magic known as Theurgy, right? Ambacus notes Pythagoras that his students use incantations to counter some illnesses, and they believe that music contributes greatly to health. Plotinus, another powerful wizard, describes in his book Theurgia its tenets that all things in the universe could be brought into symphony, and man into connection with all things via the forces that flow through him. It was an attempt to understand the divine and its infinite wisdom, understand the power and the wisdom of the gods. The objective was understanding creation itself. This becomes best encapsulated by philosophy, but mathematics, the school of mathematics, played an equally important part in this. According to Pythagoras, mathematics was the one aspect of the divine creation that the mind of man was able to fully grasp. Right? Thus, that mathematics became the pursuit of many theurgia, right? Including also many philosophy was also. Pythagoras achieved immortality through his mathematical prowess, but he also apparently did some wilder things. According to legend, Pythagoras was said to be able to see into the future as a seer, and it said he achieved literally being in two places at once. Stories repute Pythagoras with being able to travel to places within his own mind, supposedly taking a months-long trip into hell, right, into the underworld, from the comfort of his own home. Hermes Trismegistus, right? Another powerful wizard and creator of a philosophical following known as Hermetism. Right? He created or brought astrology to Greece in the 4th century BC. And with this astrology, this new pseudoscience, you all of a sudden have new method of prognostication that becomes very popular. We'll see that when we do a video on Roman magic. Conclusion. The Greek society was completely enraptured with magic. The Olympian religion, the religion of the Hellenists, and magic were inseparable from each other, right? In order to get you to the gods to do anything for you, you had to implore some type of magic. A blood sacrifice, sacrificing a goat, is a form to a god, is a form of blood magic, right? So in this way, literally everyone in Greek society is practicing magic in some way or another, even in these lesser forms of wearing an amulet of protection, right? Or even when you went to the doctor, a lot of times you were taking part in magic because the doctor was using medicine / magic to heal you, right? The Greek world of magic was ended over a protracted period by the Roman Empire after it converted to Christianity. We're not going to get into that. We'll do that for another video, why the Greek religion ends. But if we think about this, if the Greek definition of magic is the correct one, that magic is simply harnessing the power of the gods, if we think of the early Christian disciples and miracle workers such as Peter, Paul, or numerous other saints, that's really what they're doing, right? They're harnessing the power of God, right, to assist them and to either heal someone or perform some miracle, right? Detailed knowledge of other pagan religions is lost to us. We know very little about the Norse religion, the Germanic one. We know very little about any of the pre-Christian European religions before Christianity, except for the Greek religion and the Roman one. This is due to the lack of writing of these people at the time. Meanwhile, as the Greeks and the Romans did do plenty of writing, right? Folks, I hope you enjoyed this, and you can see that all these ideas of magic do come to Europe through ancient Greece, whether it be invented in the Middle East or invented in Greece or brought over. We do see that ancient Greece, is a golden age of magic. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned some things. We have many other videos on the channel that may interest you on the topic of magic, the history of werewolves, the history of vampires. our Q&A on witchcraft are all can enlighten you further on this subject of magic. Have a great rest of your day, folks, and thank you for watching.